Right.
Basically, I had already kind of started my business. I was after a divorce, and I was really looking for people to kind of pick their brains about starting this kind of business. And he'd already had one for 6 or 7 years on his own. So he flew down here, and I already had clients. I was sort of in the building phase of what the heck am I doing? We started working together on my clients.
Right.
And people were like, how long have you been working together? Because you guys are amazing together. And I picked him up at the plane like this morning.
Like an hour ago, yeah.
So,
and the first 72 hours that I came down, we were literally working pretty much back to back with all of her clients.
it was kind of before we even realized we were going to be a thing, like a couple.
Yeah.
It was like obvious that we needed to work together. Yeah, C.Ht Academy's sort of been in the works for the last 11 years, right from the beginning, because we started our business as a hands-on healing team, but we always had the idea that we wanted to create an educational system, because me growing up in Las Vegas,
Or a platform.
but we didn't know how that was going to manifest. We knew it was going to be in the digital, and it kind of needed to develop along the way.
And the technology needed to catch up to.
Because growing up in Vegas, I was always going to the library and trying to find out the answers underneath the fluff, and it was a long journey to get those answers. And I knew that if I needed to find it, there's a lot of people out there that are also looking for it without all of the crazy stuff on top of it.
Not being too poofery, not being too out there, just kind of stripping all that away. So basically what we're going to be talking about today is the 3 pillars of mediumship, or the 3 different types of mediumship. Because most people are basically aware of the big one, which is like the messaging, the platform, the John Holland type of mediumship.
Teresa Caputo. And I think not all mediumship looks like the general public, what we call civilians, the muggles, what they think it looks like, because it is so vast and diverse and various the way people use their mediumship. So we see the platform messaging on TV, which is highly edited, and the TV shows are highly edited for that one special nugget that's like dun dun dun. Or the flip side of that is the ghost hunting, shows where they don't really show
all the downtime in between.
Right, or if there's any rescue mediumship going on. So there's so many different ways that it manifests. But it basically falls under 3 categories, like what we like to call the 3 pillars of mediumship.
Right. So first, you've got the one that most people know. We're going to start there because it's easy and it's relatable, and that's messaging and evidentiary mediumship. So evidentiary is basically where you provide an evidence of proof of life that you wouldn't have yourself.
Right, and so with message mediumship, which is the first of the 3 pillars, or the most popular. For me, the most important pillar is healing, because that's the goal of all 3 types of mediumship. Right. So the message itself is not the evidence, because anyone can say, oh, your grandma's here and she loves you.
Yeah.
If you can say, your grandma's here, I see that she's wearing a white shirt with these purple polka dots, and it's your grandma's shirt.
And a pink scarf.
Right, then that would be an evidence that this is really your grandmother.
And a rainbow unicorn boa.
Right, so with message mediumship, the goal is if that was your grandma, if your grandma was a drag queen. So with message mediumship, the important thing is the evidence, and that's kind of the goal. So
yeah, and that's proof of identity, proof of life.
So it's kind of like you're placing a phone call. Message mediums just learn to place the phone call. Ours is healing mediumship. We're helping people through trauma and grief, and when they're stuck in life, and message mediumship will be a part of that.
It plays a part, right? If it's relevant to their particular session. So
once in a while we'll do a traditional message mediumship, but we don't advertise for that because we love working with the person as a whole.
And we love teaching people.
The phases are like how it manifests, like medical medium, spiritual medium, inspirational medium, mediumship painter. There's so many different what we call phases, but the pillars are the 3
categories, like the main categories, the 3 main categories that all of that falls under.
So the second one is
rescue and transition. Okay, so that's basically, in a nutshell, helping a spirit that is lost find their way home.
With rescue and transition mediumship, because once in a while, we'll go do that kind of a thing for a client. I think I have a spirit or something. Yeah. And they may have tried to exercise it in a traditional kind of way.
Get out.
Like, well, I tried holy water and crosses and they didn't cross over. And I'm like, well, they're still stuck to earth, stuck to their earth-based belief system. So what if it's a Hindu and you're like throwing crosses at it? It's like, what the heck is that? 2 sticks of wood. So you have to kind of look at it, and there may be someone stuck who doesn't have a religious construct. So,
so instead, you basically create a way to listen to the spirit and to basically create some kind of a construct to help the spirit lift their vibration enough for the people that are coming to pick them up so that they can see them.
You're just the stewardess that hands them off to their parents.
Yeah. Going back to the function of mind, intuition is a function of mind. And at a base level, your primal instincts, your animal instincts are intuition, right? So it just takes practice with learning how to trust your gut instinct, learning how to trust yourself. Just like when you're driving a car, at first, you're analyzing everything, you're self-doubting everything, you're checking everything, you're making all of these micro movements and paying attention to everything so that you don't get into a wreck. It's the same thing when you're learning to trust your intuition. You're going to pay attention to all the small stuff. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going to self-doubt yourself into the grave. And then eventually you're going to know enough to stop doubting yourself and start building that trust in those impulses.
And that's why we kind of stress to our students that you've got to work on your self-growth, because when fear and doubt comes up when you're learning your craft, you got to stop, drop, and work on your fears, because that's going to muddy the messages. It's going to take your clarity away. And it really all boils down to a fear of judgment, a fear of rejection,
or abandonment,
or any of those things that your client is reflecting back to you that really has nothing to do with your client. It probably has to do with your mom or dad, something like that. And it just pops up subconsciously because that's the same channel that mediumship information is coming on.
It's your subconscious,
right? So all of your fears are stored there too, so they're going to get in the mix.
Oops. Over
ritualizing. We like to tell our students that if your rituals are too complicated,
you're getting in your own way.
Yeah, so it's like if you're going to do a ritual, it's just a light switch.
Keep it simple.
If it's something that brings you joy, like I love to put my crystal on every day, makes me feel great, and that's going to help your gift. If it's I got to put my crystal on or else,
or I'm going to die. So the whole point is to work through the fear to be more clear. You can't do that if you're so afraid that if you don't do the ritual that you're going to mess something up.
I think I love, there's this one story that we share with students who are trying to work on that fear, like they're analyzing what they're picking up in the moment before they deliver it. It's just like, deliver it. And I learned this kind of the hard way, where we were in a session, it was a healing session. David was working them through a very serious, deep, traumatic hypnotherapy release. Seeing a spirit come in and they're showing me a little pink pony. Showing me this little pink pony, and I'm like, I can't say this. Oh, and I see a little pink pony. I'm going to disrupt this serious. I'm seeing a little pink pony, and I'm like.
And what it did was took her release even deeper, because it was exactly what she needed to hear in that moment for her release.
Well, it was an item that was in her classroom that was very special to her, that had meaning, that she went, okay. Yeah. So that's when I learned that you just got to drop it, even if it seems ridiculous to you.
And even if it never makes sense.
It's not your thing, right?
You're withholding the good stuff.
Well, I think on the flip side of that, delivers a symbol or a message, and it doesn't mean anything. To understand that it might mean something later.
Or to somebody else.
Or to someone else. That's happened to me, and I've learned to just let it go. I said, well, ask whoever else, and it might come up, it might not. It might be years later. You never know, because when spirit comes through, it's multitasking. If the channel's open, let's dump information. So you just gotta,
and it's super efficient.
Figure it out later. When 25 years ago, I went for a reading, 30 years ago, and I was always into this stuff, but I really wasn't sure about past lives. I was like, so I went to a reader, just kind of like I was 23, I think, and he was like, you've had this life and this life and this life, and in your future, you're going to be doing this kind of work that I'm doing, except you're going to be, he was telling me all this stuff that describes what I'm doing now. Crazy talk.
Yeah.
And David, 25 years later, I found this cassette tape from 1990, whatever. Put it in the cassette tape and listened to it. Everything that David and I had gone through over the past month was on that tape 25 years later. I think you'll hear a lot of parapsychologists talk about theory and how it's really important not to get set on this was definitely a past life, this was definitely this way, this was definitely this way, because
it's rigid.
Then you stop future information from coming in, because
you stop
then
learning.
It turns into ideology, and ideology is rigid.
Yeah.
It could explain some evidences, like you have a lot of evidences that are proof of life, and then maybe there's this one that just you felt was really right, and it just never fits at all. What if that's relevant for one of your parallel lives that you're living at the same time? So you have to be open to really questioning these theories.
What matters is the information that comes through and how relevant that is for your growth. Well, so bring it back to the growth, and that's what we always do.
Unless you've got a great, unless you've got an incredibly vivid, crazy imagination, your subconscious is going to put costumes on the story based on the historical times that you know.
Right.
Very out there people can pull in, wow, I see this and this and this that are probably more accurate. But someone that is just kind of coming into it is going to fill in the story with the costumes that they know that are familiar. Now, the story could have taken place in a different time frame they weren't familiar with.
Right.
But many times when people start doing it, they're very much the way they are now. They're the same gender. And then as you get more into the work and allow yourself to go deeper into your subconscious, your superconscious,
you change genders, you change roles, you change everything.
So, which kind of brings us into the third pillar, which is healing mediumship.
Right.
And that's where all of this stuff comes into play, is when you enter the realm of the deep, the shamanistic stuff.
Right.
Because mediumship is shamanism at the heart.
First is sitting. It's called sitting work in traditional mediumship, and it's basically an intentional meditation where you sit with an intention to develop or to unfold.
And there's lots of different exercises in mediumship that you, basically it's a way to figure out what your type of mediumship is. How do you work? Because every medium is different. What do you want to do? And more importantly, what are you driven to do? What is your passion? Because here's one thing that personally bugs me a little bit, is that we get so hung up on, it's my calling. If I don't follow my calling, that's like still coming from fear. It's like you're going to get punished if you don't follow your calling, or you're going to have a terrible life. No, you have to, what is your passion?
Right, because otherwise it's mommy and daddy are going to spank you if you don't heal the world. Go and do it.
When you find that passion, any mediumship can work through that passion, whatever that passion is. The second part of that system is working on your fears and then practicing with people, whatever it is.
So sit with yourself, develop your encyclopedia, develop your dictionary, your mediumship dictionary, develop your communication with your guides, communication with what's called your gatekeeper, which is kind of a guide that is specific for mediumship. And work that communication out. Learn how they talk to you and the messages they deliver and how they're delivered. Then work on your fears, because as you start developing in anything, you're going to have your fears that are coming to the surface. What you're doing is you're clearing off the static on the line. As you do your self-growth, as you do your self-development, you become a more clear channel for any of the information to come through. And then obviously taking it out into the real world and going from hobbyist into pro is where you start practicing with people. The more practice you get under your belt, then you'll know when it's time to start charging, and then from there start charging more because you're getting better, more confident, more clear, more secure, etc. So that's kind of the journey from beginner to hobbyist to pro.
This is sort of a traditional way to unfold, which is actually very helpful. The spiritualists developed it back in the day, and it works. So you get a little sitting journal. And you start to write down what you pick up. Developing your own personal kind of symbol encyclopedia is helpful, but your mediumship comes through all the senses. So it might be words, it might be a song, and that rose might not mean what it means in your encyclopedia at a certain time. It might be someone's favorite flower.
But by recognizing the patterns of the information that comes through and kind of getting more familiar with your shortcuts, it makes the messages come through faster. It makes all of the ability of the information coming through and the ability of different spirits and how they may communicate coming through, it makes it easier and faster for you to understand and distinguish and kind of break down what the message might be. Another element is recognizing that there are broad symbols for like universal symbols, right?
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, there are universal symbols, then there are your personal symbols, there are social symbols, there are tribe symbols, there are group symbols, and it's just kind of a combination of all of those things. And when I'm doing healing work, I'll get a symbol that will come in, and it doesn't have to be a visual symbol. So sometimes for me, my symbols are a feeling, a sensation, or maybe a color that sparks in my head. Yeah, and every time that I see that, it typically means this. And then I will typically bring that to the surface and see if it relates to the client. If it does, fantastic. And more often than not, it does.
Russell Targ, who's a famous physicist, parapsychologist,
Right.
said that the more you hide something, the more obvious it is to a
Absolutely.
sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
But that thing that you're hiding just might be not the thing you want reflected back to you. So many times the sensitive won't even touch it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you go in to see a medium with a like prove it attitude, or what the medium and sensitive has to get through is all of this crap you've put on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're paying them to climb the wall to get to the stuff. Why not just like open
Give
the
them
door?
the stuff. The other element is realizing that you are the key, not the
Yes.
person reading you.
They're reading your energy field.
Yeah.
Where do you think the answers come from? Unless
Yeah.
they're doing mediumship and they're reading it from the spirits coming in, they're still your energy as the sitter who's coming for the reading
Is the key.
still contributing to it. You're the one calling your loved one in. It's your energy that's bringing them in.
It's your connection with that loved
And the
one.
medium's just triangulating it and reading it. Yeah, my parents never shut it down though, because they were both very
Right.
open to it. They just had ideas about what the dark stuff was.
Right,
So I had to learn about what the dark stuff was, realizing it's just lost spirits.
right.
So, but I never shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it took me, 40 years to find the right information of what it was
Right.
and how to use it.
Right. Zen Academy is basically, it's our inner circle. It is where we plug people into the ZRG mainframe, into our heads, and dial into the systems that have worked for us, the systems that have worked for thousands of our clients, thousands of our students, to go from feeling overwhelmed and kind of crazy to having a support system, and creating ways to get paid while they're standing out, standing strong, and doing good, and most importantly, having fun.
And, basically Zen Academy, we teach twice a week lessons in there. It's ongoing lessons. There's several courses in there. You have total free open access to all the courses. Plus, through the week, we give you exercises to do. And it's sort of like an ongoing metaphysical entrepreneur support system, plus like kind of mediumship circles that are like rolling out all the time
So
for you to study.
wherever somebody is on their gifts, whether they are a #healing pro, or whether they just want to be, or whether they're just dabbling in and doing self-growth for themselves, we've got something for literally anybody, anywhere on that journey. Including, we've got an 8-lesson psychic development course, and we've got a 20-lesson advanced mediumship course that goes all the way from, I've never done this before, I don't even believe in mediums, to I'm the badass medium on the block.